Today I'm going to show you how to upcycle an old serving tray. This one I got from a thrift store, and it was really in sad shape. I wish I would have gotten a picture of it before I painted it. But it was just an old wood tray, and it had some kind of design from the 80s on it. So I painted it white. Actually used this stain blocker because some of the wood, some of it was bleeding through. So I used General Finishes stain blocker and painted it at least 3 times so that some of those stains would stop bleeding through. So what you see now is just the white tray after it's been painted. You guys all know how to paint at this point, so I didn't show you that step. But what I'm using, I'm going to decoupage using my XL paper. That's the 20 by 30 size. This is an 18-pound tissue paper, and it's meant for furniture or larger projects like this. So I'm using a brand new one. It's called Christmas Squares, and I'm going to make a lovely vintage looking Christmas tray using decoupage, paint, and resin. So quite a few different products here. And I wanted to get, I've got all these lovely little images, Christmas images on these squares, and I wanted to use as many of them as possible. But when I laid it all the way it was designed, when I laid it on the tray, a lot of it was getting cut off, and I just wasn't really using the space that I had very well. So I decided to lay it out myself using the individual elements and just kind of cutting and then making a collage. So it's kind of the end result is really just pieces pieced together, individually decoupaged. And anyway, so I just used Aleene's Collage Pauge. It's the product that I always use, but the options are really limitless when it comes to the medium that you use. If you've seen any of my videos before, I feel like a broken record when I say it. It doesn't really matter what product you use. This happens to be the first one that I ever tried, and I liked it, and it works fine. So I generally like a matte finish when I do my projects. And if I do want a gloss finish, I don't rely on this product to do it. I'll do that with a different top coat. So for general purposes for decoupage, this is pretty much the product that I always use, and I use the matte finish. Tissue paper is a little bit trickier to work with than rice paper. I've sped this up a little bit. I'm not trying to show you all of the techniques of decoupage here. I just really am trying to show you how to piece them together to get a finished product. So I'm not really going into the mechanics of decoupage. But one thing I do want to show you here, look how I'm pulling this off because it wasn't where I wanted it. And I'm able to pull it off intact and lay it right back down. And that is one of the features of this tissue paper. It's a little bit heavier weight, is that it will hold up. If you make a mistake, you can correct it. It did rip a little bit in a corner. You can't really see it on the video, but it wasn't an issue. I was just able to kind of put the glue right over it and lay it right back down. So it is a nicer, heavier weight, but it's not like a super thin tissue paper, but it's not as thick as rice paper. So it is a little bit trickier. Now, when I did this, I was not particularly careful, and I did end up with a lot of wrinkles. And I knew that I was going to put resin over the top, so I wasn't too worried about the wrinkles. If you weren't going to use resin, then you'd want to be a lot more careful than I'm being in this video and be more exacting, unless you don't care about the wrinkles, and and then it doesn't matter. So, I kind of liked that it had some, because you can actually see them in a way when the resin shines through, and it makes it look a little bit more vintage. So I didn't mind that I had some when I was doing this. Um, so if you've never used resin before, the product that I'm going to use is called Art Resin. It is a food safe resin, and it is a non-toxic. It doesn't have any chemicals or odors, um, and it dries in 24 hours. So it is a good art friendly product. And I carried that particular brand. That's the only one that I carry in my store at thdecoratl.com. And it's really the one that I primarily use for projects like this, and also for tabletops, coasters, other artsy type projects. Um, so you need to have, for a project about this size, I used about 7 ounces. So you could start with I've got an 8 ounce kit that you could start with if you're doing a small project, just to see, how it works. It is expensive though, I will say. So the more you buy, if you buy a larger size, you're getting more for your money, in other words. So I'm just going around. This is a Paint Couture paint. It's in a metallic. It's called Pale Gold. And I'm going to paint this whole tray in this pale gold color. It's a beautiful metallic. It gives it a nice enamel finish when it's dry. And it just covers so well. So I really like this paint if I'm doing an all over gold. And again, the name of it is Pale Gold. It's from Paint Couture. I do also stock Paint Couture as well on my TH Decor site. So I ended up doing 2 coats of this, and I could have left it alone because it was just so elegant, beautiful, and sleek. But I did decide to age it a little bit with some brown wax. Once it was dry, I just thought it was a little too shiny. The rest of it looked very vintage, and then I thought it was a little too shiny and new looking, so I used some brown wax to age it down. So I did need 2 coats of it, and you can see it's a little bit tricky to get around some of those edges. So I actually did end up painting some gold in the design as well, just kind of dry brushing it in there, which I thought gave it a nice effect as well. But you could use a really thin brush. I had no idea when I started this project. I had no idea where it was going to go or how it was going to look. I just sort of did it on the fly. So I did not have a plan, and I probably didn't have all the right tools in front of me. But you can see I've got that little tiny flat brush that I'm trying to go around and get in some of those seams, which would be a really good tool, but I decided not to be super careful about it, and just sort of blended it out along the edges of the design a little bit as well. And that gold really does pop so nicely because there are some gold elements inside the design, like with the crown and the bird, and the lights from the Christmas tree. So this paper comes in 3 different sizes. The XL, which you could use in bits and pieces for projects like this. You could use it as is for a larger project like a chest or something, or you can definitely cut it up and use it in just the different elements. Like if you wanted to just cut the bird out and use that for its own project, that would be fine too. It's a very versatile design, a lot of different ways to use it. It also comes in an A4 size, which is the equivalent of a letter size, and then an A3, which is slightly larger. It's 11 by 7, 11.7 by 16 and a half. So this one does come in all 3 sizes. All right, so here I'm going to show you how to use that resin. This is Art Resin. And I'm pouring equal parts of the hardener and the resin itself. So it is a two-part mixture, and I am stirring this for 3 minutes, making sure, and I've sped up the 3 minutes because I don't want you to sit here for 3 minutes watching me stir. But I did stir for 3 minutes, scraping down the sides, and making sure that it was completely mixed before moving on. So now I'm just pouring that mixture right over the top of the paper. The paper was covered with the decoupage product, the Aleene's collage pauge. So it is, I mean, I won't say it's waterproof, but it does have a sealer on it so that that paper underneath is not going to get wet with this product. So it is protected by that layer of collage pauge. And then you can pour the resin right over the top without any other products in between. And I just used a popsicle stick, a large popsicle stick, and I'm smoothing it out to take the product all the way to the edges and making sure that I don't have any gaps or holes. So a couple of things. So, you know, normally you want to wear gloves. I've used this product so many times that I don't get it on my hands anymore. And it is a self-leveling. So when I'm scraping across, I'm trying to kind of just do it at the surface, but it is going to even out, if you will, and it will level. And then, you know, you're going to get some air bubbles. So I'm using a kitchen blowtorch to heat up the resin to pop those bubbles, okay? And it's just a little quick flick over the top to pop the bubbles. So you don't want to hold it on there for too long in any one spot because you could risk burning through and, you know, starting a fire. It's just a quick motion over the top to pop the bubbles. And I'm kind of just looking for all the bubbles as I go, smoothing them out, heating them up with the gun. You could also use a heat gun. It would achieve the same purpose as the kitchen torch, but you give me an option to use some fire, and I'm going to use fire. So, you know, you definitely don't want to do this with little kids around. It needs to be done kind of in a safe environment. So, and you'll get the hang of it. It won't seem so scary after you do it a few times. You're like, okay, you know, because it's concentrated so that if you use the right tool, it's just a kitchen tool for like a flambe or something. It does go right where it needs to. It's not going to torch everything else out. I had one stubborn little spot that I think I got like some hair or some lint or something in there. So I was really trying to work on that area. It does need to be super clean, you know, no thumbprints or no stray hairs, you know, before you do it. And then while it's drying, you don't want it to attract all the random lint and things that are in the air. It will show, you know, all the dust and little microparticles. So with this, you would leave it to sit for about 15 minutes, and then you'd come back and pop out any more bubbles that have risen to the surface. And then you probably do it again in another 5 minutes. So I ended up doing about 3 different passes, you know, waiting 5 to 15 minutes in between. But it does start to harden after about 25 minutes or 30 minutes. So you don't want to torch it anymore after it's started to harden. I let it dry overnight in a warm room. I turned the heat to 74, and then let it kind of sit overnight undisturbed. And in the morning, I had this beautiful glassy finish. And again, I decided that I thought the gold was a little bit too bright. So I'm just using Stamperia antiquing paste to um, to tone down some of the gold a little bit. It's a brown wax type paste, and I'm just kind of going around the edges and 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 toning it down. But again, I had no idea what I was going to do, and then I was just super happy with the end result. I ended up with this beautiful Christmas vintage looking tray. Um, so I think I'm probably going to keep it. But so that's it. I mean, super simple, easy project with an excellent result. So thanks for watching, and hit subscribe.